If you want to become a tattoo apprentice, you're gonna have to work hard. And tattooers want to see that because tattooing is hard work. Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Krim and I own a tattoo shop in Midtown, Kansas City, right in the smack dab in the middle of the US. And I wanted to create a YouTube channel just to get some conversations going with people that are in the tattoo craft and outside of the tattoo craft, and casual collectors or ardent collectors or artists themselves can all kind of chat on a more reasonable and sane basis than what happens a lot on the cyber realms. So I wanted to kind of introduce myself and talk to you guys today about an issue that is of seemingly growing more and more in popularity, and that is how to become an apprentice of tattooing. Basically, what I've experienced most lately is people just PM or DM, just dropping a private message and asking, hey, are you looking for any apprentices? And I just want to start a conversation by saying, well, this is really not a great way to go about this. There are some pretty proven methods on how to get your foot in the door. And what a serious tattooer, someone who's seriously focused on the craft and the tradition, and someone who is interested in taking the tradition that was handed to them from yesteryear and pushing it into the modern world, and then taking that and then handing it the torch to the next generation and reaching out into the future with their tattoo craft. These are very serious individuals, guys and gals who take tattooing quite literally as a labor of love. It's first thing you should know if you're interested in apprenticing is you're really not gonna make a lot of money like TV makes it seem like. You can make a living for sure, absolutely, and it's a good one because it's a highly stressful job, but it's because it requires a lot of care. And that, of course, means stress that you take home with you and everything like that. And of course, it's a very difficult job to do. So, as such, a tattooer, someone who's going to be a good mentor for you if you're wanting to apprentice, is going to take the subject very, very seriously. And so, basically, there are two ways to go about it. Maybe more, whatever. Well, we're just going to go with two today. One is to find a shop that is wanting to trade you your labor for your education. Generally, it's that method, or there are some people who just take a lump sum of money and trade you that way, which it's compared to college, it's much cheaper, and it's a guaranteed job right out of the door. So it's maybe a little bit more like vocational school. Either way, the way a tattooer, a serious tattooer wants to be approached about this kind of thing is, frankly, fairly gently. The best thing you can do is to identify a shop or an artist that you want to apprentice under, and then go to them and start getting tattooed by them in earnest. They want, and I would also say you need to be transparent about your motivations, because if you are a client who maybe down the road says, oh, I also want to be an apprentice, I didn't tell you about this last year that I've known you, well, then the artist might think that you have an ulterior motive. Basically, what tattooers want to see out of a possible student is someone who absolutely loves tattooing, the art, the craft, and the culture of tattooing, and can't not love it, right? So it's pretty common these days for people to maybe do a little bit of art schooling or a lot of art schooling and then come out of it and go straight into tattooing, and that's great. But drawing for tattooing is its own thing as well. So a lot of times the uphill struggle there is you have to relearn how to draw because it's its own process, drawing for tattooing. But that's a good thing too. That any kind of art education is a good thing for sure. But it's not necessarily an artist that constitutes a tattooer. Because a tattooer, you have the machine building, you have the craft, you have the art, and the tradition, and you have all of these things that need to be balanced. And of course, you need your artistry to be good if you want to stand head or shoulders above the next guy or gal doing it. But just being an artist that's looking for a way to make money with their art does not, to me personally, make a strong student material. Instead, what myself and many tattooers who feel similar, what they're looking for is a person who is ready to dedicate their entire artistic life and a lot of time of their physical life to learning this craft and bettering this craft and bettering themselves through bettering this craft. So that in and of itself is more important. Basically, we just want to see someone who's hell-bent on becoming a tattooer and just hell-bent on getting tattooed. And of course, going out and supporting, an artist that you think maybe from the outside looking in is a viable mentor, somebody who could teach you well, or at least teach you how to make the art well. Supporting them is really important. Just getting an instant message or an email from a person that you don't know that's asking for really it's a big ask, right? I mean, you're asking a person to dedicate, a person who's already busy making tattoos, and tattooing is an interesting job in that if we don't work, we don't make money. We don't, it's not like an office where we're just guaranteed a paycheck every single time and I can slack off. Tattooing, if you slack off, you're not getting paid for those hours and those minutes. So we're already super busy. And if you're a good artist and a good tattooer, and you're even remotely inclined in teaching, because that's its own craft in and of itself, you're going to have probably little to no time to dedicate to, what is essentially a stranger asking you to dedicate a year at bare minimum, sometimes up to 3 years, of educating, and it is a big ask. A serious tattooer is going to take this as seriously as they take their craft. So the best thing you can do is to reach out to the tattoo artist or shop that you would ideally like to apprentice in, and just work with them, and definitely go support them. Literally, give them some money and trade for their art, and let them know that that's what you want to do. A message that just comes in randomly, are you looking for an apprentice? I think that that's the wrong way to go. And I don't mean I mean this for your own benefit. I mean that the people who are going to respond to those are probably, not always, of course, this is generalizations. I'm just talking here, but generally speaking, the people who are going to just respond to those are people who are hungry to get an apprentice because they just want somebody to kind of trade slave labor for, they don't want to clean up the trash or clean the toilets or whatever. And they're probably not going to give you the best education. So you're kind of on an uphill battle there. The thing is a good tattooer is going to tell you no a million times. But what you may not know from the outside looking in is these no's maybe aren't actually no's. These no's might be a no that they're waiting for you to deal with a million no's and still ask again. And that one time passed that you show that you're persistent and in what you want, that might prove it to this artist or this shop that you actually do have what it takes. Because another thing you might not know looking from the outside in is that many tattooers get asked about apprenticeships multiple times a month. Believe it or not, you're not the only person who wants to become a tattoo artist. And tattooing right now is blowing up. And tattoo artists have been talking about since the 80s that the bubble's going to burst. And, I guess that's what happens to bubbles, but it hasn't yet. And we'll just see. But basically, a serious tattooer wants to know that the person they're passing it on to isn't just riding on tattoo's current popularity. They're wanting to be devoting their life to it. And the other end of this is that you can get an apprenticeship at a a little street shop, that you can trade, your labor for it, for an education, be it greater or lesser degree of education. And then, probably what normally happens then is you get an apprenticeship, generally in those kind of conditions where you're basically being hazed and, like I said, trading your labor for it. What happens a lot of times there is the education's quality is not really there, and you learn just enough to make, your portfolio just good enough to jump to the next level up quality shop. And then so on and so forth throughout your career, just slowly going up and up and up. And that can work for sure. But one thing that you need to know also is that the difference between high quality tattooers and, maybe just a dude who can kind of draw and is just, out there to like live some weird like rock and roll fantasy or whatever, that he's a tattooer or whatever. The higher quality tattoo artists generally tend to like pool together and support one another, and we don't have a lot of time for people who are for lack of a better term, just half-assing it. Again, we take this as a labor of love. There's a lot of people who want to get involved in tattooing. Tattooing is just absolutely flush with people. Tattooing historically has been pretty autonomous, and we've really kind of self-regulated, our whole industry and everything. And now there's a lot of like outside interest and everything because of it being on TV or whatever, and people realizing that there's money to be made off of tattooing, not money to be made making tattoos, but just being on the periphery of the industry and making money off of it. And serious tattooers don't like that, so it's a much smaller craft thing that you're wanting to get involved in. You're going to be told no a lot. Be earnest in your asking. Be open and transparent. By all, for God's sakes, go to a shop that has quality work. It's better to be, in my opinion, it's better to be told no and actually not have a chance at a quality shop than just going to the bottom rung and starting there. If you get involved in the bottom rung, you might just end up incidentally being relegated to that for the rest of your career, and no one wants that for you or tattooing in general. But the reality is, there's plenty of shops that are just interested in just making a quick buck off of tattoos, and they're not worried about the craft or anything like that. And it's better for you to be selective and be hard-headed and push and push and push and get maybe a chance at getting a good thing going and starting off with your foot in the door in a good way, than kind of floundering throughout your career. So it's not like it's not like sometimes it appears on TV like a lifestyle of like rock and roll. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we're not working in offices here. I know how good I have it. But it does take a lot of heart to actually become good at this at this craft. I mean, really, really difficult. And I think most tattooers you talk to will tell you that it's the more you do it, the less you know about it, and the worse you feel at it. So we need to see out of a potential applicant some grit, and in the old days, there was a lot of hazing, and I think it still goes on for sure, unless you kind of wind up at the lucky spot. One thing about the whole hazing thing is, of course, it's like demoralizing and dehumanizing and not cool whatsoever. And I think most tattooers are generally doing away with that business model of apprenticing. But one positive thing that did come out of it, and I think this is the source of why it started in earnest in tattooing, is it did vet the tattooer to the nth degree. Basically, if you didn't love tattooing 100% and willing to put up with absolute shit and misery just to get your foot in the door, you would just quit and leave. I mean, I think there were more probably failed apprenticeships in the past than there were successful ones. So that's not a good business model either, and I'm not pining for that or calling for that whatsoever. But I do think that serious tattooers are still going to, have really high expectations of you, and they're going to push you to your limits, because that's what a tattoo client is going to do too. There's some tattoo clients that, you're redrawing for them, seemingly ad infinitum, and this can like you really, push you to the edge when it comes to like level of stress, because you're trying to create a permanent piece of art. So we need to see in our potential applicants this kind of like dead set, I'm going to be a tattooer, this is going to happen, I need it to happen, I'm going to work and do everything that I can to make it happen. We need to see that out of the applicant even before the apprenticeship starts, because you really have to be headstrong to make it here in the tattoo craft. I think in the old days there was kind of an unspoken rule where most shops didn't put out, those are always exceptions to the rules, but most shops, didn't put out, more than an apprentice every 3 or 5 years or so, just because in reality, when I apprentice someone, for instance, I've been tattooing probably 14, 15 years, something like that now, and I've apprenticed one person just recently, because I take it that seriously. Both the education and the reality is my apprentice, I'm creating the next generation of younger, more hungry competition for myself, So that's a double-edged sword. So that's a balancing act that a good teacher is going to think about, and not put out too many people, because then you're just flooding the industry with apprentices. And that is happening a lot right now. So long story short, if you want to be an apprentice, good luck to you. It's very difficult to get in the door and it's even more, it's almost infinitesimally small percentage that get in the door on the right foot as well. You gotta be tough, gotta have determination, and you gotta work for it. Or just, go to a, shitty shop and learn what you can and then jump to the next shop. And that happens all the time too. But just know that there's going to be a quality of education difference. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, I do want to create this channel just really to create conversations with people, and kind of elucidate some of these more invisible things that tattooers of a certain level of quality are going to adhere to, these kind of like rules that you probably can't see from the outside. Questions, comments, let me know. Thanks.